Okay, tonight is Alma chapter 56.
And now it came to pass in the commencement of the 30th year of the reign of the judges, on the second day in the first month, Moroni received an epistle from Helaman, stating the affairs of the people in that quarter of the land. And these are the words which he wrote, saying, My dearly beloved brother Moroni, as well in the Lord as in the tribulations of our warfare, behold, my beloved brother, I have somewhat to tell you concerning our warfare in this part of the land. Behold, 2,000 of the sons of those men whom Ammon brought down out of the land of Nephi. Now ye have known that these were descendants of Laman, who was the eldest son of our father Lehi. No, I need not rehearse unto you concerning their traditions or their unbelief, for thou knowest concerning all these things.
In the last chapter, we got up to the end of the 29th year, so now the 30th year is beginning, and this is, of course, the 30th year since they reorganized the government to be under the judges. Okay, and so you see this as Moroni received a letter from Helaman, and he's going to give a kind of a report on what's happened. Now, as you can see in verse 3, it says, he's talking about 2,000 of the sons of those men whom Ammon brought down out of the land of Nephi. Now, when we spoke a chapter or two ago about these 2,000 young men and the sons of the people who buried their weapons and said that they would not fight anymore, so that they had made an oath to God that they would not fight. But yet then when there were some difficulties going on, that they wanted to help, and they at first were going to actually break their oath and pick up their weapons and fight, but Helaman told them not to do that. But then the 2,000 of the sons spoke up that they were not involved in the original promise, so they were able to now be a little army of their own, okay, with Helaman being their leader. Now notice it says in the second half of verse 3, it says, you know that these were descendants of Laman, who was the eldest son of our father Lehi. Okay, so therefore, are they Nephites or Lamanites? Lamanites, right? Okay, because they were descendants of Laman. So where do these people live? The 2,000 young men, Jershon, right, which is right here's Zarahemla, okay, right up there. Okay, that was the little town or city that they set up for those people, right? Because the Nephites wanted to protect them because they were not going to fight anymore. That they were all Lamanite people, right? So that they were actually those who were converted at the time that Ammon was amongst the Lamanite peoples. That's why they're also called the people of Ammon. And so they were converted, they weren't going to fight anymore, so the Nephites gave them their own land, kind of almost behind Zarahemla, so they could protect them. And so that's the land of Jershon, where that particular group of people lived. Okay, so these 2,000 young soldiers really were coming from there. Now they're forming their own army led by Helaman. Okay?
Therefore sufficeth me that I tell you that 2,000 of these young men have taken their weapons of war, and would that I should be their leader. And we have come forth to defend our country. And now ye also know concerning the covenant which their fathers made, that they would not take up their weapons of war against their brethren to shed blood. But in the 26th year, when they saw our afflictions and our tribulations for them, they were about to break the covenant which they had made, and take up their weapons of war in our defense. But I would not suffer them that they should break this covenant which they had made, supposing that God would strengthen us, insomuch that we should not suffer more because of the fulfilling the oath which they had taken.
Says that these young men were going to be forming an army, so taking up their weapons of war to help defend the country. Their fathers were the ones who made the oath or covenant, and they were going to break the oath, but then they were advised not to, so the sons were enlisted or volunteered to do that instead. And now notice in 7 it says that occurred in the 26th year, so actually I don't know if I even realized that much time had already passed. This is the 30th year, so really, let's say 3 or 4 years have passed already even since that event, and so now they've already had the opportunity to exercise what they were going to do in terms of being volunteers in the army. All right, so okay, and then you can see in 8 it's just mentioning why he counseled the fathers to not break their covenant, and just said that we're going to depend on God. So supposing that God would strengthen us, right? So we don't have to break our promises to God because it seems like that's the expedient thing to do, but rather we'll trust in God that they made a promise to God. They should keep their promise to God, and God will protect us, and God will make it work out.
But behold, here is one thing in which we may have great joy. For behold, in the 26th year, I, Helaman, did march at the head of these 2,000 young men to the city of Judea to assist Antipas, whom ye had appointed a leader over the people of that part of the land. And I did join my 2,000 sons, for they are worthy to be called sons, to the army of Antipas, in which strength Antipas did rejoice exceedingly. For behold, his army had been reduced by the Lamanites, because their forces had slain a vast number of our men, for which cause we have to mourn. Nevertheless, we may console ourselves in this point, that they have died in the cause of their country and of their God, yea, and they are happy.
Starting to relate the story of these 2,000 young men and what they were doing, right? So you see, he says he was marching with them to assist this particular area. This is the city of Judea, not to be confused with the city of Judea that would be Jerusalem, right? Obviously they had a city here called the city of Judea to assist Antipas, who was the leader of that particular area, right? And notice in 10, he refers to them as his sons, because I guess he had that kind of a relationship with them that he cared about them. They were brave. They were willing to step up and defend their country. So I'm sure he was very protective of them. That's why he referred to them as his sons. He said so it would sound like he was even familiar with all who were there, that he was able to refer to them in that way. Right? And so they went to help out this particular area whose forces had been diminished because a number of their men had already been killed in prior battles. Now, if you see in 11, where it says we can console ourselves that they died in the cause of their country, their God, and they're happy, right? So why would they be happy? They obviously believed in God enough that they were defending God and defending their country. So they died, so they're in a happier place now. So it's see again, this is the difference between reading just a war history versus it involving people and God, because it's a little different slant to it. You can see they depend on God in making their decisions, and then even when people are killed, of course they're sad that people have died, but they say, well, we know they're in a better place now, so they can take comfort in that.
And the Lamanites had also retained many prisoners, all of whom are chief captains, for none other have they spared alive. And we suppose that they are now at this time in the land of Nephi. It is so if they are not slain. And now these are the cities of which the Lamanites have obtained possession by the shedding of the blood of so many of our valiant men: the land of Manti, or the city of Manti, and the city of Zizrim, and the city of Cumini, and the city of Antipara.
Just giving a little report of some of the cities that the Lamanites had captured. There was some give and take here in these particular battles. All right, so these are some cities that had already been captured. So we can assume there were cities that they were now going to go after to try to reobtain. Okay, so but then also there's more prisoners that were taken. So they were taken to the land of Nephi. And you remember that the land of Nephi is the land where the Lamanites lived. Okay, so they took them off to their homeland. So you can see it's kind of laying out maybe some things they would want to go after. They have some prisoners yet to be freed. They have some cities that have been captured, and so these are things that they might attempt to reverse or correct in their battles.
And these are the cities which they possessed when I arrived at the city of Judea, and I found Antipas and his men toiling with their might to fortify the city. Yea, and they were depressed in body as well as in spirit, for they had fought valiantly by day and toiled by night to maintain their cities, and thus they had suffered great afflictions of every kind. And now they were determined to conquer in this place or die. Therefore ye may well suppose that this little force which I brought with me, yea, those sons of mine, gave them great hopes and much joy.
He's setting the scene for when they arrived in this city of Judea, and describing what they found there, right? That there already some cities had been captured and people had been taken prisoner. So that's why they found a group that they had suffered some defeats. So it says they were kind of depressed and low in energy and so forth. Right? They did their best, but they were fighting a losing battle at this point. So this sudden infusion of 2,000 young men ready to go was a big boost. Right? They got these 2,000 young men that are ready to fight, and so now they're saying, "Hey, cool, we're ready to do something here."
And now it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that Antipas had received a greater strength to his army, they were compelled by the orders of Ammoron to not come against the city of Judea or against us to battle. And thus were we favored of the Lord, for had they come upon us in this our weakness, they might have perhaps destroyed our little army. But thus were we preserved. They were commanded by Ammoron to maintain those cities which they had taken, and thus ended the 26th year. And in the commencement of the 27th year, we had prepared our city and ourselves for defense.
You see in 18, right, when they arrived at this particular city, it was an encouragement to those who were there, but what else did it accomplish? They made the Lamanites back off. Right? As you see, it says that they were compelled by the order of Amram to not come against us because we had a greater strength to the army. So that's why it was by his orders. They said, well, if they got new reinforcements to the army, then this is not the time that we want to attack that particular city. And so, you see that. But then in 19, it's actually saying, thank God that they didn't do that, all right? Because even with our young men there, I mean, we're still probably been outnumbered and a disadvantage, and plus these guys are maybe a little inexperienced. So, so he was glad. He said, we're thankful that they chose not to do that. You almost have to wonder whether, even God inspired or discouraged, them from attacking at that time, because this way they were able to get through that particular period of time. Right, so instead, as you see in 20, it says, Amram said, instead of attacking this city, let's just maintain what we have. Let's just put our armies to guard the cities we have, so that we can hang on to what we have, instead of trying to get even some other city that's got new people in the army protecting them. The rest of 20, it says that that's the end of the 26th year, and then the start of the 27th year, there was something going on. Right? He's telling the story, right? He wrote a letter, and he's recounting what's happened really over the last 3 or 4 years. So, right, so therefore it makes sense he went back to the 26th year, and now he's moving forward again. Right?
Now we were desirous that the Lamanites should come upon us, for we were not desirous to make an attack upon them in their strongholds. And it came to pass that we kept spies out round about to watch the movements of the Lamanites, that they might not pass us by night nor by day, to make an attack upon our other cities which were on the northward. For we knew in those cities they were not sufficiently strong to meet them. Therefore we were desirous, if they should pass by us, to fall upon them in their rear, and thus bring them up in the rear at the same time they were met in the front. We supposed that we could overpower them, but behold, we were disappointed in this our desire.
You see, it's saying that if they were going to fight them, we'd rather that they come to us. We're not going to go after them in their, what they call their strongholds, right? Because they're at the advantage there. They have the home field advantage. If we did that, we'd rather, if anything, they come against us here, where we have the home field advantage, right? But in addition to that, it says that they were also concerned about something else. And there were other cities that they were, I guess, responsible for, that were not as well protected or well fortified, and so they were concerned that they were going to go after one of those cities. So we can perhaps picture the geography of this, that perhaps the city that they were guarding maybe is here out front, and then to get to one of the other cities they have to go past them in some way, right? To get to one of the other cities. So they had all the spies or the guards out there watching and say, okay, if we see them coming in any of these paths, then we need to be aware of that, because then now we'll chase them down even from behind and attack them that way before they can get to one of the weaker cities and take that over. So they were not only charged with protecting their own city, but now also watching the roads and seeing, well, let's make sure they're not going to pass us by and go hit up one of the other cities, because if they are, then we need to do something about that. Right? So it says they felt that they could overpower them. And then really the phrase, we were disappointed in this, or desire. Why were they disappointed? Because none of them came, right? They were all ready to chase them down from behind, and they had a great plan, but then no one showed up. So that they weren't actually even trying to go after those cities. So it was a good plan, but they didn't have to put it into action right at this time.
They durst not pass by us with their whole army, neither durst they with a part, lest they should not be sufficiently strong, and they should fall. Neither durst they march down against the city of Zarahemla, neither durst they cross the head of Sidon over to the city of Nephihah, and thus with their forces they were determined to maintain those cities which they had taken.
Fleshing out what we just said, all right, it says that no one showed up, all right? It says they didn't pass us with their whole army, they didn't pass with a part of the army, all right? We didn't see them at all. And they didn't go against any of the other cities. We have Zarahemla here, we have the city of Nephihah, all these different cities. We're concerned about nothing, right? We're watching, and no one's showing up, right? So concluding in 26, I guess they really were determined just to maintain their cities, that they weren't coming against any of our cities. So we had a good plan in place to protect the cities, but it wasn't necessary, because that wasn't what they were going to do right now. Sometimes that happens. You have a contingency plan for something, and it's not necessary. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to have plans for potential things that can go wrong. And if the thing doesn't go wrong, then be happy it didn't go wrong. It wasn't necessary to do that.
And now it came to pass in the 2nd month of this year, there was brought unto us many provisions from the fathers of those my 2,000 sons. And also there were sent 2,000 men unto us from the land of Zarahemla. And thus we were prepared with 10,000 men, and provisions for them, and also for their wives and their children. And the Lamanites, thus seeing our forces increase daily, and provisions arrive for our support, they began to be fearful, and began to sally forth, if it were possible to put an end to our receiving provisions and strength.
Now it says they're receiving provisions. What are provisions? Food, yeah, that's pretty much it. The provisions were being brought by the fathers of the 2,000 young men, so I guess they figured that this was a way they could participate or contribute to the effort, at least by bringing the food, even if they weren't going to fight themselves. At least they could help feed those who were, and so they did that. And now it says in addition, they got additional men from Zarahemla, those 2,000 men. So now the army is growing to 10,000 men, and with enough food for everybody. So if the Lamanites were worried before about the little bigger army, now it's even a bigger army. So as you can see in 29, it says now they were more fearful as they see this army growing. So it said, we're probably not going to be able to fight against this army, but maybe we'll cut off their food supplies. So maybe we'll just watch for the people bringing the food and try to cut them off so that they can't bring food. Because that would be the way to help defeat this army, is if they couldn't be provided for with food. Well, then obviously they couldn't stay there. So they decided to try that strategy to cut off their food supply.
Now, when we saw that the Lamanites began to grow uneasy on this wise, we were desirous to bring a stratagem into effect upon them. Therefore Antipas ordered that I should march forth with my little sons to a neighboring city, as if we were carrying provisions to a neighboring city. And we were to march near the city of Antipara, as if we were going to the city beyond, in the borders by the seashore. And it came to pass that we did march forth, as if with our provisions, to go to that city. And it came to pass that Antipas did march forth with a part of his army, leaving the remainder to maintain the city. But he did not march forth until I had gone forth with my little army, and came near the city Antipara.
Right, so we just read where it said the Lamanites were going to use strategy in terms of we're going to cut off the food supplies, we're going to go after anybody carrying food. So it said, well, now we're going to counter with a move of our own. Right? We're going to take these 2,000 young men, who are the sons of the ones we've been talking about, and we're going to make believe that they're now the food carriers. Right? So we're going to give them something that looks like the food. Again, I don't know if they had bags or boxes or however it was they transported it. They probably gave them empty bags and boxes. Okay, get hold of those and head for the other city there. Okay, and now why would they do that? To be a decoy, to fool them, right? Figuring that if they're going to go after somebody with the food, right? They think they have the food, they're the decoy, right? So they're going to go after them. And as you see in 33, it says that they were told to hold back the rest of the army until they go after them, and then we see what happens, right? So they're being a decoy to make them think that they're the ones with the food, who are really the part of the army.
And now in the city Antipara were stationed the strongest army of the Lamanites, yea, the most numerous. And it came to pass that when they had been informed by their spies, they came forth with their army and marched against us. And it came to pass that we did flee before them northward, and thus we did lead away the most powerful army of the Lamanites, yea, even to a considerable distance, insomuch that when they saw the army of Antipas pursuing them with their might, they did not turn to the right nor to the left, but pursued their march in a straight course against us. And as we suppose, it was their intent to slay us before Antipas should overtake them, and this, that they might not be surrounded by our people.
You can see it was just said that the 2,000 young men are acting like a decoy, right? So they're going towards the city of Antipara, which just so happens is where the biggest part of the Lamanite army is. And so when the spies say, hey, there's just 2,000 guys carrying food, let's go after them. So they come out of the city, where they weren't protected the city before. Now they're going to come out of the city and they start to go after them. All right. Well, these 2,000, knowing this is going to happen, they take off. So they start to flee, and they're pulling them away. So now they're chasing them, and here comes the rest of the Nephite army up behind them. And apparently, it says they were even aware of it, but they said, well, maybe we'll catch those 2,000 before they can catch us, because they realize that if they don't do that, they're going to be surrounded, right? Because they got the Nephites in front of them and the Nephites behind them, so they have a problem if they don't take care of the 2,000 in front of them. So they perhaps by this time realized it was a decoy situation, but now they've fallen into the trap, because now they're surrounded by the Nephite army.
And now Antipas, beholding our danger, did speed the march of his army. But behold, it was night. Therefore they did not overtake us, neither did Antipas overtake them. Therefore we did camp for the night. And it came to pass that before the dawn of the morning, behold, the Lamanites were pursuing us. Now we were not sufficiently strong to contend with them, yea, I would not suffer that my little sons should fall into their hands. Therefore we did continue our march, and we took our march into the wilderness. Now they durst not turn to the right nor to the left, lest they should be surrounded. Neither would I turn to the right nor to the left, lest they should overtake me, and we could not stand against them, but be slain, and they would make their escape. And thus we did flee all that day into the wilderness, even until it was dark.
38, it gives what happened on the first day of this adventure. All right, so the Lamanite army trying to catch the 2,000, but they're not able to catch them. But nor is the Nephite army able to catch the Lamanite army. So they're chasing each other, and yet no one's catching anybody yet. Right, but so by the end of the day, so they all kind of camped out for the night. Said, okay, let's time to rest. All right, we'll continue the chase in the morning. And but see in 39 it says that the Lamanites were not playing nice, right? Because it says that they got started before the dawn, right? So they didn't even wait for it to be dawn, and they were already back up and going after them, right? So upon realizing that, the 2,000 army now said, well, we got to go now. So this is that they would go into the wilderness, and but by all that they could, that they didn't want to be caught, because they said if they catch up to us, we're done for, because we're just a small army and they're a big army, so we can't let them catch us. So they're still playing their role as the decoy, pulling them away from the city. But if we get caught, then this is going to backfire on us, right? So that's still the carrying out of the strategy here.
And it came to pass that again, when the light of the morning came, we saw the Lamanites upon us, and we did flee before them. But it came to pass that they did not pursue us far before they halted, and it was in the morning of the 3rd day of the 7th month. And now, whether they were overtaken by Antipas we knew not, but I said unto my men, behold, we know not, but they have halted for the purpose that we should come against them, that they might catch us in their snare. Therefore, what say ye, my sons? Will ye go against them to battle?
On the 3rd day now, they're continuing to run away, right? But then suddenly, I guess they sense that they're not being chased anymore, right? So they're not coming after us. They stopped. Now what's their dilemma at this point? They don't know why they're not chasing them anymore, right? They're saying, right? Did the other army catch them, and now so that's why they're not chasing us? Or have they given up, or are they just waiting for us to stop and kind of come back and say what happened, and then they're gonna kill us? So right, they don't know what the reason for them not being chased anymore. So now they have a decision to make. And so as was just said, so now the question is, all right, if we stop and go back, we may well be engaged in a battle here. And so are you up for this? Are you up for this kind of a battle? Because if we go back, we could well be facing this. I mean, we could keep running, but if they're not chasing us anymore, and if they've been caught, well, then there's no sense in us running away anymore, because then it's over. But if we go back, we could be in a battle. So are you up for it?
And now I say unto you, my beloved brother Moroni, that never had I seen so great courage, nay, not amongst all the Nephites. For as I had ever called them my sons, for they were all of them very young, even so they said unto me, Father, behold, our God is with us, and he will not suffer that we should fall. Then let us go forth. We would not slay our brethren if they would let us alone. Therefore let us go, lest they should overpower the army of Antipas. Now they never had fought, yea, they did not fear death, and they did think more upon the liberty of their fathers than they did upon their lives. Yea, they had been taught by their mothers that if they did not doubt, God would deliver them. And they rehearsed unto me the words of their mothers, saying, We do not doubt, our mothers knew it.
So the last section we kind of ended with the question, are you willing to have a battle here if we go back? And so you can see the response that he's marveling at the courage of these young men, because even though they volunteered to be in the army, they never fought. Their fathers obviously weren't teaching them how to fight, because they had buried their weapons, didn't want any parts of that anymore. So they had never been in a battle, but yet they were willing to give it a try. Right, as you can see in 46, it said, Behold, our God is with us, and he will not suffer that we should fall. So let us go forth, and God will make it happen. Right, and so he's just amazed that even though they never fought, that they didn't fear death, and they were really just more about the cause, and then we're going to do this, and God's going to protect us. Said our mothers even taught us that. Interesting that the mothers taught it, right? It says that our mothers taught us that if you don't doubt, God will deliver you, right? And so it's when they played back the words of their mothers, we say our mothers knew what they were talking about. So we're gonna go on that we were taught that if we don't doubt, God will deliver us.
And it came to pass that I did return with my 2,000 against these Lamanites who had pursued us. And now behold, the armies of Antipas had overtaken them, and a terrible battle had commenced. The army of Antipas, being weary because of their long march in so short a space of time, were about to fall into the hands of the Lamanites. And had I not returned with my 2,000, they would have obtained their purpose. For Antipas had fallen by the sword, and many of his leaders, because of their weariness, which was occasioned by the speed of their march. Therefore the men of Antipas, being confused because of the fall of their leaders, began to give way before the Lamanites.
A few verses ago, we were talking about what the different possibilities were for why the Lamanite army had stopped chasing them. So which was the actual outcome? Antipas' army had caught up to them, right? That's why they weren't chasing the 2,000 anymore, because the Antipas army had caught up to them. So as you can see that the terrible battle commenced, and however, here's where the fatigue, the weariness kicks in. Here they've been chasing them probably very fast, and so now you have to run. Oh, now I have to fight too with the sword. Okay, well they were tired, so as a result they were losing. As you can see, it says some of the leaders were killed, and the men who were left were kind of in a confused state with they were leaderless. They didn't really know what to do next, and so since they were about to give way before the Lamanites, they were going to lose. But here comes the 2,000 decided to turn around and come back, and so they were arriving just at this time as it appears that the battle might be lost, is when they're showing up now.
And it came to pass that the Lamanites took courage and began to pursue them, and thus were the Lamanites pursuing them with great vigor, when Helaman came upon their rear with his 2,000, and began to slay them exceedingly, insomuch that the whole army of the Lamanites halted and turned upon Helaman. Now when the people of Antipas saw that the Lamanites had turned them about, they gathered together their men and came again upon the rear of the Lamanites. And now it came to pass that we, the people of Nephi, the people of Antipas, and I with my 2,000, did surround the Lamanites, and did slay them, yea, insomuch that they were compelled to deliver up their weapons of war, and also themselves as prisoners of war.
So as we said, that just at the time that they were about to win, the Lamanites were, here comes the 2,000 of Helaman, now behind them, because now they've turned around, so they come up from the rear and they start to attack them and say, whoa, okay, we got these guys behind us now. So now they turn around to fight with them, and once they turn around, now the ones of Antipas say, hey, okay, we got help. And so now they're surrounded, right? Now they're being attacked on both sides. It's almost unfair, really, think about it, right? But this was the strategy that they did to potentially surround them, and it happened to work out that way. So that's why they were being attacked from both sides. And so, as you can see in 54, that the end result was that they won this battle, right? It says that they surrounded the Lamanites and did kill some, and the rest they surrendered, gave up their weapons of war, became prisoners of war, right? So they were successful because the 2,000 had come at just the right time. Now, had they kept, you notice, had they kept running, had they kept being the decoy and just running, the whole battle would have been lost. The outcome would have been different. But because they were brave enough to turn around and come back, even then not knowing what the outcome was going to be, but yet they did that, and so they turned the whole battle around by showing up right at the right time.
Now it came to pass that when they had surrendered themselves up unto us, behold, I numbered those young men who had fought with me, fearing lest there were many of them slain. But behold, to my great joy, there had not one soul of them fallen to the earth. Yea, and they had fought as if with the strength of God. Yea, never were men known to have fought with such miraculous strength, and with such mighty power did they fall upon the Lamanites, that they did frighten them, and for this cause did the Lamanites deliver themselves up as prisoners of war. And as we had no place for our prisoners, that we could guard them to keep them from the armies of the Lamanites, therefore we sent them to the land of Zarahemla, and a part of those men who were not slain of Antipas with them, and the remainder I took and joined them to my stripling Ammonites, and took our march back to the city of Judea.
After the battle was done, okay, so Helaman, as we already have heard from earlier in the chapter, cares about these young men who were fighting with him in the 2000s. So he wants to see how did they fare, right? How many were killed or hurt, or whatever. And so how many were killed? None, right? Right. So here out of 2,000 men fighting this battle, none were killed. All right. As you can see, it says that to my great joy, not one soul of them had fallen to the earth. Right. They fought as if with the strength of God. So because they were fighting with faith. Right. They were there, not afraid of the outcome. They were they're representing the cause of God. And so it says that they fought with the strength of God. And so as a result, they were not only helpful in winning the battle, none of them were killed. Right? And that's pretty amazing. Think about it. 2,000 went in and 2,000 come out. So all 2,000 were spared. And so that's why this particular young army, I mean, is a kind of a famous one in the Book of Mormon, because they're almost like a magical army, right? That they come into the battle, they fight, nobody gets killed. So they really were protected by God, and they went in with faith, and they had a good result, right? And so you can see in 57 now, it says, okay, what they're going to do with the prisoners. Some will join the army, some will be prisoners, right? And you see it refers to the small army as my stripling Ammonites, all right? That we sometimes refer to them as just the 2,000 stripling warriors, right? But of course they were the people of Ammon, so that's why they called them the Ammonites, even though that name didn't really catch on. But this was who they were, the people of Ammon, the 2,000 sons, and this was the result. They were protected by God and had a really good result in this particular battle.